Okay, now we're going to get into the application with factoring procedures. Okay, you need to find the dimensions of this shape. You know the length is x and the width is x minus 7. We'll know the dimensions, okay, blank by blank, and I'm going to need to find what x actually is so that I can, find what the dimensions are. That's the length, that's the width. That's your job. Okay, now I got some work to do first, okay? I put my equals here, and that's area. Area is 18, and right above here, don't put it right beside it. Put it above. Length times width has to equal 18. So what I need to do is multiply the length times the width, and I need to do that up here. So the length is x, slap a 1 in front, and the width is 1x minus 7. So I distribute 1x times 1x, and then 1x times negative 7. Okay, you only need to do two multiplications here. That's 1x to the second, and that's negative 7x. Now, x to the second is my highest, so blank x second plus blank x plus blank. So I have a 1 for x to the second and a negative 7 for x, and I don't have a constant, so I delete that. Okay. All right, so I come down here, and now I know my length times width is 1x to the second plus negative 7x. Now I can solve the equation for x. Now there's two answers because it's to the second power, but you also have this x that is not to the second power, so you need to set it. It's not set, so I'm minus 18. And I can't take 18 from 1x to the second or negative 7x, so I put that after it. So now I have 1x to the second, just put minus 7x, minus 18 equals 0, and now you're set. You're going to have to set these equations before you draw your boxes. And there's three terms, so three terms would be GCF, and then my table. And always put what A equals. You got to pay attention to that. So GCF, I don't have the negative in front. I don't have X on everything. And then 1, 7, and 18. If 1's in the group of the numbers, it's just 1. Okay? So let's not do that. That doesn't help me. So I take positive 1 times negative 18, and that's negative 18. So we're minusing, and we're trying to get to 7, which is a negative. 1 and 18, nope. Divide by 2, you get 9. There we go. 9 minus 2 is 7. 7's negative, makes the 9 negative. And when I have a negative up there, the signs have to be the opposite. Okay, now A is 1x to the second. When I did the A, it was 1. So I can delete the 1, and it's just x to the second. So that's just two parentheses. X plus 2, x minus 9. Okay, and that's, remember, all this equals 0. And I didn't have a GCF to put here. So that's F1, that's F2. So x plus 2 can equal 0, or x minus 9 can equal 0. So I minus 2, and that gives me negative 2. I plus 9, and that gives me positive 9. Now what I do then is I take the positive answer, the 9, and put that over your x's. We want to use the positive. So the length is 9. And the width is 9 minus 7, which is 2. So it's 9 by 2. Okay. Next one. Set up your, and again, you need to find the length by the width. That's your job. Find what the dimensions are. All right, so what I do is the area is equal to 128. And area is length times width, okay? Put that above. We need to put some algebra right there. So what I do is I take the length times the width. Organize your work nicely. So the length is 1x plus 6, and the width is 1x minus 2. So this multiplication takes a little bit longer. I got two terms here, two terms here. You have to use the FOIL method. I take 1x times 1x. And 1x times negative 2, and then 6 times 1x, and 6 times negative 2. Find what those equal. So that's 1, and then x times x is to the second. Then negative 2 with x, 6 with a factor of x, and negative 12 with no factors of x. So the highest is second. So x is second, I have 1. This is what you should be doing up here, okay? And then we'll worry about down here later. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4, and then I put my negative 12 right here. So now that's my length times my width. It's 1x to the second plus 4x plus negative 12. Okay, now there's two answers, but there's also this x that isn't to the second, so it's got to be set. So minus 128, and that can go with my negative 12. So I have 1x to the second plus 4x. Negative 12 minus 128 is negative 140, and that takes me to 0. So now we're set. You were not set at the beginning. 3 terms, GCF, and table. So the GCF, well, you don't have the negative, you don't have x on everything, and 1's my very lowest number, so that makes 1 the GCF. So if it's just 1, don't do it. So I take 1 times negative 140, and that's negative 140, so it's a minus to try to get to 4. You got to go for a little while here. 1 and 140, that's 139. Divide that by 2, you get 70. That's 68. 140 divided by 3, use a calculator for that. Decimal, divide by 4, you get 35. 35 minus 4 is not 4. Divide it by 5. 5 and 28, that's 23. Obviously not going to work. Okay, then by 6, decimal, by 7, 20. 20 minus 7 is not 4. Okay. Decimal, decimal. I got 14. What's 14 minus 10? Oh, that's 4. 4 is plus this time, so we'd have plus 14, and a negative means they have to be opposite. Okay, now a is 1x to the second, so again, I can delete the 1. I don't need 1 as long as it's a 1, because I know I can just go x times x. And then minus 10 plus 14. And I didn't do a GCF, so I don't put anything here. So this is my F1, this is my F2, and all this equals 0. This is the same as this, I'm just writing it in a different form. So it's like I'm unmultiplying it. That's known as factoring. So plus 10, that gives me 10 here, minus 14, and that's negative 14. So I take my 10 up here, the positive. If you don't know which one to pick, it's the positive. So 10 plus 6 is 16, and 10 minus 2 is 8. So 16 by 8 are your dimensions. Okay, now the next one, by the way, that says 31.5. Okay, but that's not going to be our area. Okay, it's not. We're going to make this into a rectangle. So what did I just do with the area? I doubled it. So I take that times 2, and 31.5 times 2 is 63 whole. So it's equal to 63, and now I can do everything the same as before. Length times width, okay? So I need to multiply the length by the width. So x, again, blank by blank. So I have a length of x plus 4, put a 1, and then x plus 2, put a 1, multiply that out. So 1x times 1x, 1x times 2, 4 times 1x, and 4 times 2. Okay, so what happens here? Well, that's 1 with x to the second, that's 2 with x, that's 4 with x, and that's 8. So collect your like terms now. X is second, you have 1. 2 plus 4 is 6, and then 8. So I know my length times my width. 1x second plus 6x plus 8. So there are two answers to find. but there's also this x that isn't to the second, so we have to set the equation. We subtract 63, and I can do that from 8. So I have 1x to the second plus the 6x. Then 8 minus 63 is negative 55. Okay. Now I see the 3 terms. By the way, in case you haven't noticed, there ends up being 3 terms. Most of the time on story problems in Algebra 1, there ends up being 3. GCF and T. Remember, we're going to need to know what A is. No negative, you don't have X on everything. 1, 6, and 55. 1's got to be the GCF out of that group. Okay, so A is going to be 1x a second, so I'm not going to need the 1. So I take 1 times negative 55. That gives me negative 55. So it's going to be a minus to try to get to 6, which is positive. No. Then you get a bunch of decimals. Decimal, hit up, switch a 2 to the 3. Decimal, hit up, go switch the 3, delete the 3 with a 4. Makes it go quicker. 5 and 11. Okay, 11 minus 5 is 6. So it's those two. I got plus on 6. I got a negative, so the signs are the opposite. So A, again, I don't need XX minus 5 plus 11. Don't need that. F1, F2 equals 0. So x minus 5 could equal 0, or the x plus 11 could equal 0. You're using what's known as the zero product rule. So that's 5, negative 11. So I use the 5. So 5 plus 4 is 9. And 5 plus 2 is 7. So that's 9 by 7. Because that was a triangle. 9 times 7 is 63. Divided by 2 is 31.5. Okay, so everything ends up the same in the end. Okay, you're like, well, I can't make that into a rectangle. Sure you can. Right here, right here. So I doubled that. So 32.5 times 2 is going to be 65. So again, I set that as my area, and my area is 65. And I need my length times my width. Well, I could take my length times my width, and I got to do some work. 1x plus 8. Then the width is x, so 1x. So I take 1x. I don't need to FOIL here. It's just 2 multiplications. And then 8 times 1x. So that's 1x to the second, 8x. Probably not going to need that, okay, because you got 1 and 8. So my length times the width is 1x to the second power plus 8x. Okay, so I have 2 answers. Again, my equation's not set, though. I'm going to need to factor because I have this x not to the second, so I subtract 65. And that's 1x to the second plus 8x minus 65 equals 0. Okay, so those are my 3 terms. So GCF. And then my T table. Remember to pay attention to what A is in the end. Okay. So GCF, no negative in front. You don't have X and everything. 1, 8. Okay, so it's a 1. I haven't done that yet, probably. Then I take 1 times negative 65. So I have negative 65, and I'm going to minus to try to come to 8, which is positive 8. 1 and 65, no, not even close. Now I start dividing. Decimal, decimal, decimal. 5 and 13. Well, what's 13 minus 5? That's 8, okay? So 8's positive, making that positive, and we got a negative up there, so the signs are the opposite. Okay, now my A is 1x to the second, so once again we delete the 1. As long as that's a 1, it can be deleted, and I can just make 2 parentheses because I know there's no breaking down. That's just x by x. Minus 5 plus 13. No GCF to put in front, so I have my 2 factors. So x minus 5 can equal 0, or x plus 13 can equal 0. So I add 5. It's 5. And negative 13. Take your 5 up here, blank by blank. So 5 plus 8 is 13. And this is just x, so that'll be just 5. There's no operation with 5 other than the fact it's just 5. Now, 13 times 5 is 65, but it divided by 2 takes it back to 32.5. Ooh, yeah.